I should have known the moment he walked in that my life was about to change. It was a Tuesday night at Bellissimo's, the kind of upscale Italian restaurant where I'd been serving tables for the past 2 years while finishing my medical degree. The dinner rush had finally died down, leaving only a handful of lingering guests nursing their wine and tiramisu. I was mentally calculating my tips, wondering if I'd made enough to cover this month's student loan payment, when the front door opened. 3 men entered first. They moved like shadows, silent, coordinated, their eyes scanning the restaurant with the kind of practiced vigilance that made my stomach tighten. They wore expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the bulk of whatever they carried beneath their jackets. My manager, Paolo, went pale. He actually took a step backward, nearly dropping the reservation book. Then he walked in. Even before I knew who he was, I felt it, that magnetic pull of someone who owns every room they enter. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair styled back from a face that could have been carved from marble, sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with stubble, and eyes so dark they looked black in the restaurant's warm lighting. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car, and he moved with the fluid grace of a predator. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Paolo rushed forward, stammering greetings in rapid Italian. I caught enough to understand this man didn't have a reservation, but he was being seated immediately at the best table, the private corner booth I'd been assigned for the evening. My section. Perfect. I grabbed menus and approached, forcing my hands not to shake. As a 4th-year medical student who'd worked in emergency rooms, I'd learned to keep my composure under pressure. But something about this man made my pulse race, in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Or maybe it had everything to do with it. "Good evening," I said, setting down the menus. "My name is Elena, and I'll be..." He looked up at me, and the words died in my throat. His eyes weren't just dark, they were endless, holding depths I couldn't begin to fathom. But there was something else there too, a flicker of interest, maybe even surprise, as his gaze traveled over my face with an intensity that made heat rush to my cheeks. "Elena," he repeated, and my name sounded different in his deep voice, touched with an accent I couldn't quite place. Italian, but refined, cultured. Beautiful name. "Thank you," I managed, trying to regain my professional demeanor. "Can I start you gentlemen with drinks? Or would you like to hear our specials?" He continued watching me with that unnerving focus, as if he could see straight through to my bones. One of his men, a stocky guy with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, leaned over and whispered something in his ear. The man's expression didn't change, but he gave the slightest nod. "Bring us a bottle of your best Barolo," he said, "and the chef's tasting menu for everyone." "Of course." I collected the menus, hyper-aware of his eyes following my every movement. "I'll have that right out for you." I walked to the bar on legs that felt unsteady, trying to shake off whatever spell he'd cast. Marco, the bartender, grabbed my arm as I approached. "Do you know who that is?" he hissed. "Should I?" "That's Dante Salvatore." He said the name like it explained everything. When I stared at him blankly, he shook his head in disbelief. "The Dante Salvatore. He runs the entire north side. Everything. The docks, the unions, half the politicians in this city. Paulo's probably in the back having a panic attack." My blood ran cold. Mafia. Of course. I'd been in this city long enough to know the Salvatore name, to understand that certain people operated above the law. I just never expected to serve one dinner. "Don't mess this up," Marco warned, uncorking an obscenely expensive bottle of wine. "And, whatever you do, don't stare at him. Men like that. They're dangerous." Too late for that. I'd already looked into those eyes and felt something shift inside me. The evening progressed with excruciating tension. I served each course with practiced efficiency, hyper-aware of Dante's gaze tracking my movements. His men spoke in low voices, but he remained mostly silent, occasionally asking me questions about the food, the restaurant, how long I'd worked here. Simple questions that felt loaded with hidden meaning. "You're not just a waitress," he observed as I cleared their appetizer plates. It wasn't a question. I hesitated. Something in his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "I'm in medical school. 4th year. A doctor." His lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Interesting." Before I could respond, one of his men's phones buzzed. The scarred one answered, his expression darkening as he listened. He leaned toward Dante again, whispering urgently. This time, Dante's face changed just a flicker, a tightening around his eyes, but it was enough to tell me something was wrong. "Excuse me," he said, standing abruptly. His men rose with him. I need to make a call. They disappeared into the restaurant's back corridor, toward the private restrooms. I released a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, grateful for the reprieve from that intense scrutiny. I was checking on my other tables when I heard a heavy thud, followed by urgent voices. The back corridor. Without thinking, my medical training kicked in, and I moved toward the sound. What I found made my heart stop. Dante Salvatore was on the floor, his body convulsing, foam beginning to form at the corners of his mouth. His 3 men stood frozen in shock, guns drawn but useless against whatever invisible enemy had struck their boss down. Call 911, I shouted, already dropping to my knees beside him. No hospitals, the scarred man barked, his weapon now pointed at me. No police. No one can know. He's dying, I snapped back, my hands already checking Dante's pulse, his airway. Years of emergency medicine training overrode my fear. He's been poisoned. Look at the symptoms: rapid onset, convulsions, excessive salivation. My guess is organophosphate, probably in his food or drink. I could see it all clicking into place in Dante's lieutenant's eyes. The attempted assassination, the public venue, the timing. Someone had gotten to him in a place that should have been safe. Can you help him? He demanded. Dante's body jerked again, his back arching as another seizure hit. His lips were turning blue. Minutes. We had minutes before brain damage became irreversible. Get me to my car, I ordered. Now. I have emergency supplies in my medical kit. They didn't move. The scarred man's gun stayed level with my head, even as his boss lay dying at my feet. I don't care who you are or what you do, I said, looking him straight in the eye. But if you want him to live through the next 10 minutes, you'll get me my kit and clear this hallway. I need space to work. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Dante's hand reached up, somehow finding the strength to grab his lieutenant's arm. The gesture was weak, but the command was clear. The gun lowered. Marco! I screamed toward the restaurant. My medical bag from my locker, now! What happened next became a blur of controlled chaos. Marco appeared with my bag, his face white with terror. I worked with the speed and precision drilled into me through countless emergency room shifts, administering atropine from my emergency supply. Thank God I'd restocked it after my last ER rotation. This will counteract the poison, I explained as I worked, my voice steady even though my hands wanted to shake. But he needs activated charcoal, and he needs it in the next few minutes. Someone poisoned him, probably less than 20 minutes ago, based on symptom onset. The scarred man I'd learn later his name was... Luca was already on his phone, barking orders in rapid Italian. Within minutes, another man appeared with medical supplies that shouldn't have been available outside a hospital. I didn't ask questions. I just worked. Slowly, agonizingly, Dante's convulsions eased. His breathing stabilized. The blue tinge faded from his lips, but he remained unconscious, his powerful body slack against the floor of a restaurant corridor while I knelt beside him. My fingers pressed against his pulse, monitoring every breath. He needs to be moved somewhere safe, I said quietly, and watched. For the next 12 hours, someone needs to monitor his vitals. If there's any change, respiratory depression, cardiac arrhythmia, he'll need immediate medical intervention. Luca studied me with cold calculation. You'll come with us. It wasn't a request. I can't just, you just saved his life. Luca's voice was flat, matter of fact, which means 2 things. 1, you're valuable, and 2, whoever tried to kill him will now know you're the reason he's alive. You think they'll let you walk away? The words hit me like ice water. I looked down at Dante's unconscious face, at the man whose life I'd just saved, and realized with crystal clarity that my life as I knew it had just ended. Get her things, Luca ordered the others. We're leaving. Now. They lifted Dante's body with surprising gentleness, and I found myself being ushered toward a back exit I'd never noticed, my medical bag clutched in my trembling hands. A black SUV waited in the alley, engine running, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. This was insane. I should run, scream, call for help. But Luca's words echoed in my mind. Whoever tried to kill him will now know you're the reason he's alive. I'd spent 4 years learning to save lives. I never imagined it would cost me my own freedom. As they loaded Dante's unconscious body into the SUV, and Luca gestured for me to follow, I looked back at Bellissimo's one last time. Through the window, I could see my coworkers staring in shocked silence. Paulo already on the phone, probably calling someone to explain what had just happened. I climbed into the SUV, the door closing behind me with the finality of a cell door locking. Dante lay across the seat, his head somehow ending up in my lap as the vehicle lurched into motion. His face was peaceful now, the harsh lines softened by unconsciousness. I found myself smoothing his hair back from his forehead, checking his pupil response with my penlight. The medical professional in me unable to stop working even as my world crumbled around me. "Where are we going?" I asked. Luca, seated in the front passenger seat, glanced back at me. "His estate. It's secure, fortified. No one gets in or out without his permission. Or yours, apparently," I muttered. Something that might have been amusement flickered in Luca's eyes. "You've got courage, I'll give you that. Most people would be crying by now. I'll save the crying for when I know he's stable," I replied, my fingers finding Dante's pulse again. Still steady, strong. Right now I'm his doctor. Everything else can wait. As the city lights blurred past the tinted windows, Dante stirred slightly in my lap. His eyes fluttered open for just a moment, those endless dark eyes that had first captured me, and they found mine with surprising clarity. "Elena," he whispered, my name barely audible. "Save your strength," I said softly. "You're safe now." His hand lifted, fingers brushing against mine where they rested on his chest. The touch sent electricity racing up my arm. "Safe," he repeated, and his lips curved into the ghost of a smile. "Because of you." Then his eyes closed again, and he drifted back into unconsciousness. I sat in the back of that SUV, speeding toward an unknown destination with a man whose world I'd just stepped into, and realized with absolute certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. I'd saved Dante Salvatore's life. Now I had to pray he wouldn't destroy mine. The Salvatore estate wasn't what I expected. Somehow, I'd imagined something dark and gothic, all iron gates and shadowy corners. Instead, as we passed through the heavily guarded entrance, I found myself staring at what could only be described as a fortress masquerading as a Mediterranean villa. The main house sprawled across the hilltop, all white stone and terracotta tiles gleaming under strategically placed lights. Manicured gardens stretched in every direction, beautiful and serene. But I wasn't fooled. I'd counted at least a dozen armed guards just on the drive up, and the gardeners I glimpsed carried more than pruning shears under their jackets. The SUV pulled directly into an underground garage where more men waited. They moved with military precision, lifting Dante from the vehicle with careful coordination. I scrambled out after them, my medical bag clutched in my hands. "This way," Luca said, leading me into the house through a service entrance. We moved through corridors that screamed wealth marble floors, artwork that probably belonged in museums, furniture that cost more than my yearly tuition, but I barely registered any of it. My focus was on Dante's unconscious form being carried ahead of me up a grand staircase. They brought him to what was clearly a master bedroom suite. The room was massive, dominated by a king-sized bed with dark silk sheets. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds, though I noticed they were reinforced glass, probably bulletproof. A sitting area, a fireplace, doors leading to what I assumed was a bathroom and closet, luxury and danger wrapped in Italian marble. "Put him on the bed," I ordered, my medical training overriding any intimidation I might have felt. "And I need proper lighting. Bring me a lamp," or, before I finished, someone had already positioned 2 high-intensity floor lamps beside the bed. These men were efficient. I'd give them that. I worked, quickly, doing a thorough examination now that I had proper light and space. Pulse steady. Breathing normal. Pupil response good. The atropine had done its job, counteracting the worst of the organophosphate poisoning, but he'd need monitoring through the night. "I need to set up an IV," I said. "Do you have medical supplies here?" Or, "Already here." A new voice made me turn. An older man, maybe 60, with silver hair and a doctor's bag entered the room. He wore an expensive suit and carried himself with authority. "Dr. Russo, I'm Mr. Salvatore's personal physician. Elena Vitale, 4th-year medical student at Street. Catherine's." I stepped back slightly, deferring to his authority while still keeping a protective stance near Dante. I administered atropine at the scene and activated charcoal during transport. He's stable now, but he'll need continuous monitoring for the next 12 hours. "I'm aware, Doctor." Russo set down his bag and began his own examination, his movements practiced and professional. After a moment, he glanced at me with something like approval. "You did excellent work, Miss Vitale. Without your quick intervention, he would have died." The amount of poison in his system. He shook his head. Minutes. He had minutes. The weight of those words settled over the room. I'd known it was bad, but hearing it confirmed made my knees weak. I'd saved his life by seconds. Who did this? I asked quietly. The temperature in the room dropped. Every man present went still, and I realized I'd crossed some invisible line. You didn't ask questions about Mafia business. You didn't dig into attempted assassinations. You stayed silent, grateful to be alive, and hoped they let you walk away when it was over. But I'd never been good at staying silent. Luca stepped forward, his scarred face unreadable. That's not your concern. He was poisoned in a restaurant where I worked, I countered. With something that could have killed dozens of people if it had been in Nunair? The wrong dish. So yes, it is my concern. Was it targeted? Did someone on staff help? Are my coworkers in danger? Your coworkers are fine, Luca said flatly. The poison was in his wine glass specifically. Someone got to it between the time it was poured and when it reached the table. We're handling it. The way he said handling it made my blood run cold. I didn't want to imagine what that meant. Dr. Russo cleared his throat. Miss Vitali, you've done everything necessary for now. Luca will show you to a guest room where you can rest. I'll monitor Mr. Salvatore through the night. I'd prefer to stay, I said. I know his baseline vitals. I'll recognize any changes faster than... I stopped, realizing how that sounded. No offense, Dr. Russo. The older man's lips twitched. None taken. You're protective of your patient. It's admirable. He glanced at Luca, some silent communication passing between them. Very well. You may stay, but I suggest you change out of your work clothes. Maria will provide you with something comfortable. An older woman materialized in the doorway as if summoned. She was short, round, with kind eyes that assessed me with grandmotherly concern. Come, dear, let's get you settled. I hesitated, not wanting to leave Dante's side even though Dr. Russo was clearly competent. Maria seemed to sense my reluctance. She moved to a door I hadn't noticed, apparently connecting to an adjoining suite, and opened it. His mother's rooms, she explained softly. Before she passed, God rest her soul. You can clean up and change here, but still be close if Dr. Russo needs you. It was a compromise I could accept. I followed Maria into a feminine suite decorated in soft creams and golds, a bathroom done in marble and crystal, a walk-in closet that still held clothes, elegant dresses, and casual wear that looked like they'd fit me perfectly. Dante never had the heart to clear her things out, Maria said, pulling out soft yoga pants and a cashmere sweater. She would have liked you. She always said Dante needed someone with fire in their eyes. She handed me the clothes with a meaningful look. Shower's there. Take your time. I'll bring you some food. After she left, I stood in the bathroom of a dead woman's suite, holding her clothes, in a mafia boss's mansion, and finally let myself shake. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by the crushing reality of what had happened. I'd saved a mafia boss's life. I'd been brought to his estate essentially kidnapped, though no one was using that word. And now I was. What? A prisoner? A guest? A witness who knew too much? The shower helped clear my head. The hot water washed away the restaurant grime, the sweat of fear, the traces of Dante's blood from where I'd checked his vitals. I stood under the spray and tried to think rationally. I couldn't just leave. They'd made that clear. Whoever tried to kill Dante would come after anyone who'd helped him. And even if they let me go, what would I walk into? Questions I couldn't answer? Danger I couldn't fight? But staying here meant entering a world I'd spent my whole life avoiding. My parents had left Italy to escape this life, the corruption and violence that came with men like Dante Salvatore. They'd raised me to believe in law, order, medicine, legitimate ways to make a difference in the world. What would they think if they could see me now? I dressed in the borrowed clothes they fit perfectly, which was somehow more unsettling than if they hadn't, and returned to Dante's room. Doctor, Russo had set up a proper IV and monitoring equipment that looked hospital grade. Dante lay still as death, except for the steady rise and fall of his chest. Vitals are stable, doctor, Russo reported. His body is metabolizing the poison. He should wake within the next few hours. I pulled a chair close to the bed and settled in to watch. Maria brought food, pasta, bread, wine, that I didn't touch, and I ate mechanically while monitoring Dante's breathing. Luca appeared in the doorway as the clock struck midnight. You should sleep. I'm fine. That wasn't a suggestion. I met his eyes. Neither was my answer. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, Luca's mouth quirked in what might have been respect. "You're either very brave or very stupid. I'm a medical student surviving on coffee and spite," I replied. Brave and stupid are basically the same thing at this point. That actually got a laugh out of him, short and rusty, like he didn't do it often. "Dr. Russo, I'll take the next shift. You should rest." The older doctor looked between us, then nodded. "Call if anything changes. Anything at all." After he left, the room fell into silence, broken only by the soft beep of the monitoring equipment. Luca took up position in the corner, a silent shadow with a gun. I pretended not to notice. "How long have you worked for him?" I asked eventually, partly to stay awake, partly because I needed to understand this world I'd stumbled into. "Since we were 16, Luca said after a pause. "His father took me in when I had nothing. Dante and I. We're brothers, in every way that matters." There was fierce loyalty in his voice, the kind that explained why he'd pointed a gun at me in that restaurant corridor. Protecting Dante wasn't just his job, it was his purpose. "What will happen to me?" I asked quietly. "After he's better? That's up to the boss." Luca shifted, and I heard the creak of leather as he adjusted his weapon. "But if you're smart, you'll understand that you're valuable now. You saved his life. That means something in our world. It also means whoever tried to kill him knows who I am." Yes. The simple confirmation sent ice through my veins. "So I'm trapped here." "You're protected here," Luca corrected. "There's a difference." Was there? I looked at Dante's sleeping face, so peaceful despite the violence that surrounded his life. What kind of man was he, really? A ruthless crime lord who deserved to die for his sins? Or something more complicated? Around 3 a.m, Dante stirred. I was on my feet instantly, checking his vitals, watching as his eyes moved beneath closed lids. His hand twitched, reaching for something or someone. "Elena," he murmured, still unconscious but somehow sensing I was there. My name on his lips sent warmth flooding through me that had nothing to do with professional concern. I took his hand without thinking, and his fingers closed around mine with surprising strength. "I'm here," I whispered. "You're safe." His breathing deepened, settling back into sleep, but he didn't let go of my hand. I looked down at our intertwined fingers, my small hand engulfed by his larger one, and felt the walls I'd built around myself begin to crack. This was dangerous. More dangerous than the poison, than the guns, than being trapped in a Mafia estate. This feeling blooming in my chest, this irrational connection to a man I'd just met, a man whose world was built on violence and power. But as dawn began to paint the sky outside those bulletproof windows, and Dante Salvatore held my hand like a lifeline, I realized it was already too late. I was falling into danger, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be saved. Dante woke at dawn. I saw his eyes open, focus on the unfamiliar ceiling, then track downward to where our hands were still joined. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then his gaze found mine, and the intensity in those dark eyes stole my breath. "You're still here," he said, his voice rough with sleep and lingering poison. "Where else would I be?" I replied, trying to sound professional even though my heart was racing. "You're my patient." His thumb traced a slow circle on the back of my hand. "Is that all I am?" The question hung between us, loaded with meaning I wasn't ready to explore. I gently extracted my hand and reached for my penlight. "Let me check your pupil response," he allowed, the examination without comment, though I felt his eyes on my face the entire time. His pupils were equal and reactive, his skin tone good, no signs of respiratory distress. Medically, he was recovering beautifully. Emotionally, I was a mess. "You saved my life," he stated when I finished. "I did my job. Your job is serving pasta at Bellisimo's. My real job, what I'm training for, is saving lives. You just happened to be the one who needed saving." A smile tugged at his lips. "Lucky me." "Lucky?" I stepped back, putting necessary distance between us. "You were poisoned. Someone tried to kill you. That's not luck. But you were there." His eyes never left mine. "That's where the luck comes in." Before I could respond, Luca entered with Dr. Russo. The older doctor's face lit up with relief when he saw Dante awake. They spoke in rapid Italian, a medical update, I assumed, though my Italian was rusty enough that I only caught every third word. Dante responded in English, his eyes finding me again. Dr. Russo says I owe my life to Miss Vitale's quick thinking and medical expertise. Your life is your own, I said quietly. I just made sure you got to keep it. Elena. The way he said my name made it sound like a caress. Come here. I shouldn't have. I should have maintained professional distance. Should have let Dr. Russo handle things now that Dante was conscious. But my feet carried me forward anyway. Drawn by some invisible thread I couldn't seem to cut, Dante reached up and caught my hand again, his grip firm but gentle. Thank you. Those are inadequate words for what you did, but they're all I have right now. The sincerity in his voice undid something in my chest. This was the man beneath the Mafia boss, someone who understood debt, loyalty, and the weight of life and death. You're welcome, I managed. Doctor, Russo cleared his throat. You need rest, Mr. Salvatore, and food. Your body needs time to fully recover from the toxin. I'll rest. Dante's eyes never left mine. But first I need to speak with Elena. Alone. Luca stiffened. Boss, that's not... alone, Dante repeated, his voice carrying command that made even Luca back down. They left, though Luca looked like he wanted to argue further. The door closed, leaving me alone with Dante Salvatore in his bedroom, dawn light streaming through the bulletproof windows, and suddenly I was acutely aware of how intimate this situation was. I'd spent the night watching over him. I'd held his hand. I'd whispered comfort when he was unconscious. And now, in the soft morning light, he looked less like a dangerous crime lord, and more like a man who'd survived death by inches. Sit, he said, gesturing to the bed beside him. I shouldn't... Elena. Just my name, said with that accent that turned it into music. Please. I perched on the edge of the bed, careful to maintain distance. Dante shifted, propping himself up against the pillows, and I noticed the way his muscles moved beneath the thin hospital gown someone had dressed him in. He was built like a soldier, all lean strength and controlled power. I know you have questions, he said. About 1,000 of them. Ask. Can I leave? The directness of my question seemed to surprise him. Do you want to? I want to know if I have a choice. Dante studied me for a long moment. The truth? Right now, leaving would put you in danger. Whoever poisoned me, and I have some ideas about who will know you're the reason I survived. They'll see you as a loose end, as leverage, as a threat. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. He echoed Luca's words from earlier. There's a difference. Not from where I'm sitting. Then let me show you. He pushed himself more upright, ignoring my professional protest that he should rest. This estate has 57 rooms, 23 acres of grounds, a library, a gym, a pool. You can go anywhere you want within these walls. You can eat what you like, sleep when you want, continue your medical studies. All I ask is that you don't leave the property without protection. For how long? Until it's safe. And when will that be? His jaw tightened. When I've dealt with the people who did this. The unspoken threat in those words made me shiver. What does dealt with mean? You don't want to know. Don't I have a right to know? You said I'm in danger because of them. Don't I deserve to understand what's happening? Dante reached out and caught my chin, tilting my face toward his. The touch was gentle, but the intensity in his eyes was anything but. You want the truth? Fine. The Marchetti family has been trying to muscle in on my territory for months. They've already hit 3 of my businesses, killed 2 of my men. This, he gestured to himself, to his poisoned body, was their boldest move yet. And it failed, because of you. So now what? Now I remind them why you don't come at a Salvatore and miss. The quiet menace in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself asking, what will you do to them? What do you think? I pulled back from his touch, standing up and putting the bed between us. I think I don't want to know. I think I've spent my whole life training to save people, and you're talking about killing them. They tried to kill me first. That doesn't make it right. It makes it survival. He threw back the covers and stood, ignoring the IV still in his arm. He was taller than I remembered, broader, and even weakened by poison he moved with predatory grace. You think this world runs on right and wrong, on ethics and morality? It doesn't. It runs on power, on showing strength, on making sure that when someone tries to kill you, you hit back twice as hard. That's reality. Elena, he stepped closer, and I found myself backed against the window. You don't have to like it. You don't have to understand it, but you're in it now, whether you want to be or not. We stood toe to toe, his body radiating heat, his eyes burning with something between anger and desire. I should have been afraid, but all I felt was alive, more alive than I'd felt in years of careful, controlled studying and planning. I didn't ask for this, I whispered. Neither did I. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. But here we are. What do you want from me? Right now, I want you to stay, to be safe, to give me time to eliminate the threat against you. His voice dropped lower. Tomorrow? Next week? I'm not sure yet, but I know that watching you work last night, seeing your courage, your skill, the way you ordered my men around without fear, something in me recognized something in you, Dante. And the way you held my hand while I slept, the way you whispered that I was safe. His forehead touched mine, our breath mingling. No one's made me feel safe in a very long time, Elena. The vulnerability in his words cracked something open inside me. This man, this dangerous, powerful man who commanded armies and struck fear into his enemies, was telling me I made him feel safe. It was absurd, impossible, and absolutely, devastatingly true. This is crazy, I breathed. Probably. I barely know you. Then get to know me. You're a criminal. And you're a woman who just spent 12 hours holding my hand while I fought off poison. I think we're past pretending labels matter. He was right. God help me. He was right. Whatever this was between us, attraction, connection, something deeper and more dangerous, it had already taken root. I'm scared, I admitted. Of me? Of what I'm feeling. Dante's smile was soft, tender, at odds with his fearsome reputation. Good. Fear means you're smart. It means you understand the stakes. His thumb traced my lower lip, sending electricity racing through me. But Elena? I'm scared too. Because in one night, you became the most dangerous person in my world. How? Because I care whether you live or die. And in my business, caring is the fastest way to get yourself killed. Before I could respond, he kissed me. It was gentle, questioning, giving me every chance to pull away. But I didn't. I leaned into it, my hands finding his chest, feeling his heart racing as fast as mine. The kiss deepened, his arms wrapping around me, pulling me close. He tasted like smoke and danger, and something indefinably his. I felt myself melting against him, all my protestations and logic dissolving in the heat of the moment. A knock at the door tore us apart. We stood breathless, staring at each other, the air between us crackling with interrupted electricity. "Boss," Luca called from outside. "We have a situation." Dante's expression shifted instantly from tender to commanding. "Come in." Luca entered, his scarred face grim. "The Marchettas are claiming you're dead. They've already started moving on 2 of your territories. Word is spreading fast." A cold smile curved Dante's lips. "Then I think it's time I made an appearance. Show them their assassination attempt failed spectacularly." He glanced at me. "Elena, you should rest. We'll talk more later." It was a dismissal, but a gentle one. I nodded, suddenly exhausted as the adrenaline finally wore off completely. As I moved toward the door, Dante caught my hand one more time. "Thank you," he said again, "for everything." Our eyes met, and in that moment, I saw past the Mafia boss to the man beneath complex, damaged, dangerous, but undeniably real. And that's when I knew I was in real trouble. Because I wasn't just attracted to Dante Salvatore. I was starting to care about him. And in his world, caring could get me killed. I slept through most of the day in the late Mrs. Salvatore's suite, waking only when Maria brought food and checked on me with grandmotherly concern. Through the connecting door, I could hear muffled voices, Dante conducting business, giving orders, his voice shifting between Italian and English with fluid ease. I should have felt like a prisoner. Instead, curled in luxurious sheets that probably cost more than my car, I felt safe, protected, which was absurd considering I was being held in a Mafia estate because someone wanted me dead. Or maybe not so absurd, because Dante was right, leaving would put me in danger. Staying kept me alive, but staying also meant getting closer to him, and that kiss this morning had already crossed lines I couldn't uncross. By evening, Maria insisted I join the household for dinner. "Mr. Dante specifically requested your presence," she said, laying out a dress on the bed. "And he doesn't take no for an answer." The dress was stunning deep emerald silk that matched my eyes, elegant but not overly formal. It fit perfectly, like everything else in this dead woman's wardrobe. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, barely recognizing myself. I looked like I belonged here, in this world of wealth and danger. I hated how much I liked it. Maria led me through the mansion to a formal dining room that could have seated 20 but was set for only 4. Dante sat at the head of the table, dressed in a fresh suit despite having been at death's door just hours ago. He looked completely recovered, powerful and commanding. But when his eyes landed on me, something softened in his expression. Elena, he stood, as did Luca and another man I didn't recognize. You look beautiful. Heat crept up my neck. Thank you. Though I feel a bit like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's clothes. My mother would be pleased to see them worn again. Dante pulled out a chair to his right. Sit, please. I took the offered seat, hyper-aware of his proximity. The other man, introduced as Marco, one of Dante's captains, sat across from me. Luca took the seat beside him, and the whole thing felt bizarrely like a family dinner despite the fact that everyone except me was probably armed. Servers appeared with wine and multiple courses of Italian cuisine that rivaled anything I'd served at Bellissimo's. The conversation flowed around me, business talk, carefully edited to exclude specifics, probably for my benefit, but I caught enough to understand that Dante's resurrection had sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. The Marchettis are scrambling, Marco reported between courses. They'd already started making moves on your territory, thinking you were dead. Now they look weak and foolish. Good. Dante's voice was cold. Let them scramble. Let everyone see what happens when you come at me and fail. What about the girl? Marco's eyes flicked to me. No offense, miss, but word's already spreading that you're here. The Marchettis will figure out you're the reason their poison failed. Elena is under my protection, Dante said flatly. Anyone who touches her dies. Make sure that message gets out loud and clear. The casual way he discussed my potential murder made my stomach turn. I set down my fork, appetite gone. I think I'd like to be excused. Elena, Dante began. I'm tired. It's been a very long day. I stood, not waiting for permission. Thank you for dinner. I made it to the door before Dante caught my arm. Wait. I'm fine. Really. I just need some air. Then let me show you the gardens. His hand slid down to capture mine. Please. You've been cooped up inside all day. I should have said no. Should have gone back to my borrowed room and locked the door. But his thumb was tracing circles on my palm, and those dark eyes held something that looked like genuine concern beneath the commanding exterior. Fine, I agreed. But just the gardens. And then I'm going to bed. Just the gardens, he echoed, though the small smile on his lips suggested he didn't believe I'd send him away that easily. He was right. Damn him. The gardens were breathtaking in the twilight, meticulously maintained paths winding through roses and jasmine, a fountain burbling at the center of it all. But I couldn't relax, couldn't enjoy the beauty, because I could see the guards. They were everywhere, subtle but present, weapons barely concealed beneath their jackets. You really live like this? I asked. Constantly surrounded by armed men? Always watching for threats? Since I was 16, Dante replied. When my father was killed and I inherited his empire, you were just a child. I stopped being a child the day I watched him die. His voice was matter-of-fact, but I heard the pain beneath it. He was shot during a meeting, betrayed by someone he trusted. I was there. I watched him bleed out on a restaurant floor, not unlike where you saved my life last night. The parallel wasn't lost on me. Is that why you looked at me the way you did? When I was trying to save you? Maybe. He led me to a bench overlooking the fountain. Or maybe it's because I've spent the last 15 years surrounded by people who only see the boss, the leader, the man with power, and then you burst into that corridor, saw me dying, and your only thought was how to fix me. Not who I was, not what I could do for you. Just saving my life because that's who you are. I didn't know what to say to that. So instead, I asked, what happens now? With the Marchettis? We go to war. The simple statement sent chills down my spine. War. They tried to kill me, Elena. They failed. But if I don't respond with overwhelming force, others will think I'm weak. They'll think they can challenge me too. In this world, weakness is death. So, more people will die. Yes. He turned to face me fully, his expression unreadable. Does that disgust you? It should, I admitted. But I understand it. In the ER, we see gang violence all the time. Kids killing kids over territory, respect, retaliation. It's a cycle that never ends. And the people caught in the middle. I shook my head. They're the ones who suffer most. You're not caught in the middle anymore, Elena. You're under my protection. No one will touch you. Because you'll kill them if they try. Without hesitation. The certainty in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, I found it comforting, which said terrible things about how quickly I was adapting to this world. I should go back inside, I said, but I didn't move. Neither did Dante. Instead, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering on my jaw. You're extraordinary, you know that? I'm ordinary. I'm just a medical student who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. No. His thumb traced my cheekbone. There's nothing ordinary about you. The way you took charge in that corridor, the way you held your ground with Luca, the way you looked at me this morning like I was worth saving despite everything you know about me. He leaned closer. That's not ordinary, Elena. That's rare. Dante. Let me finish. His forehead touched mine, our breath mingling in the growing darkness. I've done terrible things. I'll do more terrible things. I can't promise you that I'm a good man, because I'm not, but I can promise that while you're with me, you'll be safe, you'll be protected, and you'll never have to be afraid. I'm not afraid of you, I whispered. Then what are you afraid of? Myself. The admission tore from somewhere deep inside. I'm afraid of how much I want to stay, how much I want this, whatever this is, between us, even though I know I shouldn't. I'm afraid that I'm becoming someone I don't recognize. Dante's hand cupped my face, his touch impossibly gentle. Or maybe you're becoming who you really are. Maybe all those years of following the rules and doing what you're supposed to do. Maybe that was the disguise. And this, his lips brushed mine. This is you, finally being honest. He kissed me then, and I let him. More than that, I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his jacket, pulling him closer. The kiss was desperate, hungry, all the tension and fear and desire from the past, 24 hours pouring into it. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against mine. Stay, he whispered. Not because you have to, not because it's safe. Stay because you want to. I should have said no, should have told him this was too fast, too dangerous, too everything. Instead, I found myself saying, okay. The smile that lit his face was devastating, genuine joy mixed with relief and something deeper I wasn't ready to name. He pulled me against him, and I let myself sink into his warmth, his strength, the solid reality of him. A gunshot shattered the peaceful moment. Dante reacted instantly, his body covering mine as he pulled me down behind the bench. More shots rang out, too close, the peaceful garden transforming into a war zone in seconds. Stay down, Dante ordered, his voice hard with command. But I lifted my head enough to see guards running, weapons drawn, shouting in Italian. And there at the garden's edge, near the wall that was supposed to keep threats out, men in black, returning fire. The Marchettas had found us, and they'd brought the war to Dante's doorstep. Chaos erupted around us. Dante kept his body between me and the shooters, his hand reaching beneath his jacket to produce a gun I hadn't known he was carrying. The casual way he checked the magazine and chambered a round told me this wasn't his first firefight. Elena, listen to me carefully, he said, his voice deadly calm despite the bullets flying overhead. When I say run, you run for the house. Don't look back. Luca will meet you at the door. Understand? I'm not leaving you. That wasn't a request. His eyes locked with mine, fierce and protective. You run or I'll have you carried. Your choice. More gunfire. Screams. The sound of something exploding near the garden wall. Dante's men were fighting back, but the attackers had clearly planned this assault carefully. Now, Dante pushed me toward the house as he stood, providing cover. Fire. I ran. Every instinct screamed at me to go back, to help, but I forced my legs to carry me toward the mansion. Luca appeared exactly where Dante said he would, grabbing my arm and hauling me through the door. The safe room? He barked at someone. Now. No. I dug in my heels. I'm a medical student. If anyone's hurt, I can help. Luca looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Miss Vitali, the boss ordered. The boss isn't here. I pulled free of his grip. Where do you keep medical supplies? We have doctors on call, who aren't here yet, So unless you want your men bleeding out while we wait, show me your supplies. Now, something shifted in Luca's expression, respect maybe, or recognition that I was as stubborn as his boss. This way. He led me to a room I hadn't seen before, equipped like a field hospital. Cabinets full of supplies, trauma equipment, even a portable surgical setup. These men were prepared for exactly this kind of violence. I was gathering supplies when the first casualties arrived. 2 of Dante's guards, both shot, both bleeding heavily. Training took over. I worked quickly, efficiently, triaging wounds and barking orders at the men who watched with something like awe. You, I pointed at a young guard. Apply pressure here. Keep it firm. You, I gestured to another. Get me more gauze, and someone find me O-negative blood. This one's going to need a transfusion. More wounded came. I lost track of time, lost track of everything, except the work. Gunshot wounds, shrapnel injuries, 1 man with a concussion from an explosion. I treated them all, moving between patients with practiced precision. I was suturing a particularly nasty laceration when Dante appeared in the doorway. He was covered in soot and blood, hopefully not his own, and his expression when he saw me elbow deep in medical work was indescribable. You were supposed to be in the safe room, he said quietly. I was more useful here. I tied off the last stitch. How? Many more? That's all of them. My men secured the perimeter. The attackers retreated. He moved closer, and I saw the rage simmering beneath his controlled exterior. They got inside my walls, Elena. They brought a war to my home. Are you hurt? I stood, professional concern overriding everything else. Let me look at you. I'm fine, Dante. I put steel in my voice. Let me check you. He allowed it, standing still as I examined him for injuries. The blood was mostly someone else's, but he had burns on his hands from the explosion, and a graze on his shoulder that he'd completely ignored. This needs cleaning, I said, already reaching for supplies. Sit. Elena, sit. Down. To my amazement, he obeyed. I cleaned and dressed his wounds with gentle efficiency, hyper-aware of his eyes on my face the entire time. You never stop, do you? He asked softly. Always taking care of people. It's what I'm trained for. It's who you are. His hand caught mine as I finished bandaging his shoulder. You could have hidden. Should have hidden. But you stayed and saved my men's lives. I couldn't just, I know. That's what makes you remarkable. He pulled me closer, between his legs, his hands settling on my hips. Do you understand what you've done? Those men in there, they'd die for me because it's their job. But now they'd die for you because you showed them you're worth dying for. The weight of that statement settled over me. I didn't do anything special. You treated them like human beings instead of soldiers. You saved their lives with the same skill and care you used to save mine. His thumb traced circles on my hip. In one night, you've become more important to this organization than you realize. I should have pulled away, should have maintained professional distance. But I was exhausted, terrified, coming down from an adrenaline high, and Dante's solid presence was the only thing keeping me grounded. I was scared, I admitted. When those shots rang out, when I saw you stand up to draw their fire, I thought, I couldn't finish the sentence. I'm hard to kill. His smile was grim. The Marchettis are learning that the hard way. This is because of me. They attacked because I'm here, because I saved you. No. His grip tightened. This is because they're desperate and stupid. But you're right that they know you're important to me now. Which means you can't leave. It's not safe anymore. Was it ever? Probably not. He stood, pulling me with him. Come on. You need rest. So do you. I have work to do. Retaliation to plan. Security to reinforce. He saw my expression, and his voice softened. This is my world, Elena. This is what I do. Let me help. You have helped. More than you know. He led me out of the makeshift medical center, through corridors now heavily patrolled by armed guards, to the master suite. My borrowed room felt too far away, too empty after the chaos of the evening. Stay here tonight, Dante said, reading my mind. You'll be safer in my suite. I'll take the couch. You're injured. You should take the bed, Elena. I'm too tired to argue, Dante. Let's both take the bed. It's big enough for an army anyway. The look he gave me was heat and hope and hesitation all mixed together. Are you sure? Was I? This was crossing yet another line, blurring yet another boundary. But tonight had proven something to me. I was already in this, Already his, whether I admitted it or not. I'm sure. We both changed me in the bathroom, him in his closet, and met at opposite sides of the massive bed. The sight of Dante in simple black pajama pants, his muscled chest bare except for my white bandages, did things to my pulse that had nothing to do with medical concern. We lay down, carefully maintaining distance, both of us staring at the ceiling as if it held answers to questions we were afraid to ask. "Thank you," Dante said into the darkness, "for saving my men tonight, for being brave when you had every reason to hide. Thank you for protecting me, for keeping me safe even when it put you in more danger." Silence stretched between us, loaded with everything we weren't saying. Then Dante's hand found mine in the darkness, our fingers intertwining. "I should sleep," I whispered. "You should." Neither of us moved. And then, somehow, I was turning toward him and he was pulling me close, and I was tucking myself against his uninjured side with my head on his chest. His arm wrapped around me, holding me secure, and I felt his lips brush my forehead. "Sleep," he murmured. "I'll keep you safe." Against all logic, I believed him. In the arms of a Mafia boss, surrounded by violence and danger, I felt safer than I had in years. I fell asleep to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the rise and fall of his breathing, the solid warmth of him surrounding me. And when I woke hours later to find him watching me in the pre-dawn light, his expression soft with something that looked like wonder, I realized the most dangerous thing in this entire situation wasn't the marchettis or the guns or the war brewing outside these walls. It was the way my heart was beginning to belong to Dante Salvatore. I woke alone. The bed beside me was empty but still warm, which meant Dante hadn't been gone long. Sunlight streamed through the reinforced windows, and I could hear voices from the other room, tense, urgent conversation in rapid Italian. I dressed quickly in more borrowed clothes, jeans, and a soft sweater this time, and ventured into Dante's study, following the voices. What I found made me freeze in the doorway. Dante stood behind his massive desk, completely transformed from the man who'd held me last night. His face was hard, expression carved from stone, as he stared down at someone kneeling on the floor. Luca and 3 other men I recognized from the estate formed a semicircle around the figure. "Please," the kneeling man begged in English. I had no choice. They threatened my family. "Everyone has choices, Paolo." Dante's voice was cold, empty of any emotion. "You chose to betray me, to let those men through the south gate, to put everyone in this house in danger." My breath caught. The attack last night, someone had helped the Marchettis get through the security. "I'll do anything," Paolo sobbed. "Please, Mr. Salvatore, I've worked for you for 5 years, which makes your betrayal even worse." Dante picked up a gun from his desk with casual, terrifying ease. "You knew what this would mean." "Dante," I heard myself say. Every head turned toward me. Paolo's face lit with desperate hope. Luca looked grim. And Dante's expression didn't change at all, which was somehow more frightening than if he'd shown anger. "Elena," he didn't lower the gun. "Go back to the bedroom. Don't do this. This doesn't concern you. You're going to kill him. That concerns me." I stepped into the room despite every instinct screaming to run. "He said they threatened his family. Maybe nothing." Dante's voice cut like a blade. "He made a choice. Now he faces the consequences. What about second chances? What about mercy? Mercy gets you killed in this world." His eyes finally met mine, and they were empty. The man who'd held me last night was gone, replaced by the ruthless boss everyone feared. "This is who I am, Elena. This is what I do. If you can't handle it, leave." The challenge was clear. Accept him as he was killer, boss, judge, and executioner, or walk away. I looked at Paolo, sobbing on the floor. I thought about his family, the threat he'd faced, the impossible choice between loyalty and love. Then I thought about Dante's men who'd been shot last night, about the violence that had invaded this house, about the fact that mercy to Paolo meant potential death for others. "Can I talk to you?" I asked quietly. "Alone. For just a minute." Dante studied me for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. "Everyone out. Paolo stays on his knees." The room emptied except for us and the traitor. I moved to Dante's side, close enough that only he could hear me. "I'm not asking you to let him go," I said softly. "I understand the rules of your world well enough now to know that's not possible. But his family, the ones the Marchettis threatened, are they still in danger?" Something flickered in Dante's eyes. "You want me to protect the family of a man who betrayed me. I want you to break the cycle. The Marchettis threatened innocent people to force his hand. Don't let them win by making more innocent victims. And Paolo? That's your decision. I'm not going to tell you how to run your organization. But his family, I held his gaze. They didn't choose this. Don't punish them for his mistakes. Dante looked at me for what felt like an eternity. Then he turned back to Paolo. Your family will be protected, he said, his voice still cold but with an edge of something else, calculation maybe, or grudging respect. I'll have them moved to a safe house under my protection. The Marchettis won't touch them. Paolo's sob of relief was cut short when Dante continued. But you still betrayed me. That can't go unanswered. He looked at Luca. He has until sunset to leave the city. If he's still here after dark, kill him. Make sure everyone knows why. It wasn't mercy exactly, but it was more than I'd expected. Paolo was dragged from the room, still sobbing, now with gratitude mixed with his fear. When the door closed behind them, Dante set down the gun and turned to me. You shouldn't have interfered. I know. You made me look weak in front of my men. I know that too. And yet you did it anyway. He stepped closer, and I couldn't read his expression. Why? Because despite everything, I think there's more to you than just the ruthless boss. Because you held me last night like I was precious. Because when I look at you, I see someone who understands duty and loyalty and the weight of impossible choices. I met his eyes. And because his family shouldn't suffer for his mistakes. You're going to be the death of me, Dante said. But there was something almost like warmth in his voice. My men already think you've bewitched me. Now you've made me show mercy to a traitor. I didn't make you do anything. You chose to protect his family. That was all you. He pulled me against him, his hand tangling in my hair. You're changing me. I don't know if that's good or dangerous. Maybe both. His laugh was surprised, genuine, definitely both. Then his expression sobered. But Elena, you need to understand what you saw in there. That's the reality of my world. I can't always show mercy. Sometimes I have to be ruthless to keep everyone safe. Can you accept that? Could I thought about the men I treated last night. The violence that was apparently routine in this world. The fact that Dante's mercy still meant Paolo had to flee or die. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm still here. For how long? The question hung between us. Before I could answer, Luca burst back into the room, his phone in hand and his expression urgent. Boss, we have a problem. The Marchettis are calling for a sit-down. Dante's entire demeanor shifted, becoming predatory. What kind of sit-down? Neutral ground. Tomorrow night. They want to negotiate terms. Luca's jaw tightened. They're claiming the attack last night was unauthorized rogue elements they've since dealt with. Bullshit. Dante's voice was flat. They're scrambling because the attack failed and they know I'm planning retaliation. Probably. But refusing to meet makes us look afraid. Then we meet. Dante's smile was sharp and cold. But on my terms. Set it up at the Corelli warehouse neutral ground, but our people can secure it first. And double Elena's security detail. If this is a setup, she's the target they'd go for. Already done. After Luca left, I turned to Dante. I'm the target now? You've been the target since the moment you saved my life. He cupped my face, his touch gentle despite the steel in his voice. But I swear to you, Elena, no one will touch you. Not the Marchettis, not anyone. You're mine to protect. Yours, I repeated softly. Yes. His thumb traced my lips. Mine, if you'll have me. The declaration should have terrified me. Instead, it sent heat flooding through my veins. Is that a question or a statement? Both. I should have said no. Should have told him this was too fast, too dangerous, that I barely knew him. But I'd seen him at his most vulnerable and his most ruthless. I'd slept in his arms and watched him pass judgment. I knew exactly who he was, darkness and light mixed together. Then yes, I whispered, I'm yours. The kiss he gave me was claiming, possessive, full of promise and danger. When he finally pulled back, both of us breathing hard, his eyes held something almost like reverence. I'll keep you safe, he promised. Whatever it takes. I believed him. And that's when I knew I was truly lost. Because keeping me safe might mean destroying himself, and I wasn't sure I could bear watching that happen. The Corelli warehouse had the abandoned, industrial look of a place where bad things happened regularly. Dante had insisted I stay at the estate, but I'd argued until he relented on the condition that I wait in the car with an armed security detail. Now, watching him disappear inside with Luca and a dozen men, I regretted pushing so hard to come. He'll be fine. Maria said from beside me. She'd insisted on coming too, though she claimed it was to keep me company. I suspected it was really to keep me from doing something stupid. Mister, Dante has survived worse than a sit-down with the Marchettis. That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be. This is his life. Our life. She patted my hand with surprising strength. But he's fighting for something now. For you. That makes him more dangerous than ever. Through the darkened windows of the SUV, I could see guards positioned around the warehouse. The Marchettis would have their own men inside. 2 families, armed to the teeth, pretending to negotiate while preparing for war. 20 minutes passed. 30. I was checking my phone for the 10th time when I heard it, a single gunshot from inside the warehouse. Stay in the car, my guard ordered as he and 2 others rushed toward the building. I lasted maybe 30 seconds before throwing open the door and running after them. Maria's protests faded behind me as I raced across the parking lot, my medical training overriding any sense of self-preservation. More gunshots, shouting, the sound of a full-scale fight breaking out. I burst through the warehouse door to find chaos. Men on both sides with guns drawn, some already firing, others using equipment and walls as cover. In the center of it all, Dante stood face to face with a man I didn't recognize, older, silver-haired, with cold eyes that held nothing but malice. Dominic Marchetti. Had to be. Should have died like your father, Marchetti was saying, his voice carrying despite the chaos around them. On the floor, bleeding out, begging for mercy. My father never begged. Dante's voice was deadly calm. And neither will I, but you will. Before this is over, you'll beg me for death. Empty threats from a dead man walking. Then several things happened at once. Marchetti reached for his gun. Dante moved faster, his weapon already in hand. But from the corner, another Marchetti soldier aimed at Dante's unprotected back. Dante! I screamed his name without thinking. He turned, saw the threat, but he was out of position. The gunman's finger tightened on the trigger. Luca appeared from nowhere, his body intercepting the shot meant for Dante. The scarred lieutenant went down hard, blood blooming across his chest. No! Dante's roar of rage was primal. He fired 3 times in rapid succession, each shot finding its mark. The gunman, Marchetti himself, and a 3rd man I hadn't even seen. All 3 dropped. Then it was over. The Marchetti men who weren't dead were fleeing, leaving their boss's body behind. Dante's men secured the warehouse while Dante himself dropped to his knees beside Luca. I was running before I consciously decided to move. My medical bag somehow in my hands, someone must have grabbed it from the car. I slid to my knees on Luca's other side, already assessing the wound. Gunshot to the upper right chest, I said, my voice automatically shifting to the clinical detachment that got me through emergencies. Possible lung involvement. We need to stop the bleeding and get him to a hospital. No hospitals. Luca's voice was weak but firm. Boss, no hospitals. You'll die without proper treatment. Then I die. His hand found Dante's. Protected you. Like I promised. You're not dying, you stubborn bastard. Dante's voice broke on the last word. Not for me. Not like this. I was already packing the wound, applying pressure. Someone get me the trauma kit from the car. Now. Men scattered to obey. I worked on Luca, while Dante held his lieutenant's hand. His expression more devastated than I'd ever seen it. He saved my life, Dante said quietly. Again, he saved me 12 times over the years. Then let me return the favor. I looked at Dante directly. Get him to your estate. I can do emergency surgery there, I've done it before in field conditions. But I need him stable enough for transport. You can do this? I have to. I wasn't sure if I was talking about Luca or Dante or myself. I can't lose anyone else today. Between my treatment and Dante's men efficiently securing transport, we had Luca in the SUV within 5 minutes. I rode in back with him, my hands maintaining pressure on the wound, monitoring his vitals while Dante gave orders in rapid-fire Italian from the front seat. You shouldn't have come, Dante said, glancing back at me. If I hadn't, you wouldn't have known about that shooter until it was too late. If you hadn't, you wouldn't have put yourself in danger. I'm already in danger. We established that. I checked Luca's pulse again. Drive faster. The makeshift operating room at the estate was ready when we arrived. Doctor. Russo had been called in, along with 2 nurses I didn't recognize. Together, we worked on Luca, while Dante paced outside like a caged animal. The surgery took 4 hours. The bullet had missed his heart by centimeters but nicked his lung. I'd done enough trauma rotations to handle it, but it was close. Too close. When we finally closed and I stripped off my bloody gloves, my hands were shaking from adrenaline crash. Dr. Russo gripped my shoulder. "Excellent work, Miss Vitale. You saved his life. We saved his life." I looked at Luca's unconscious form, now breathing steadily with the help of a ventilator. "Will he be okay? He'll recover fully, thanks to you." Dr. Russo paused. "Mr. Salvatore asked that you find him when we finished. He's in his study." "I found Dante exactly where Dr. 2, Russo said, standing at the window overlooking his estate, a glass of what looked like whiskey in his hand. He didn't turn when I entered. "How is he?" Dante asked. "Stable. He'll make a full recovery." Dante's shoulders sagged with relief so profound it was almost physical. "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me. You saved another person I care about." He finally turned, and his eyes were raw with emotion. "Do you understand what you mean to me now? You saved my life. You saved my men. You saved Luca, who's been my brother since we were boys." He crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands framing my face. "How am I supposed to let you go after this? Who said anything about letting me go? You should leave. Run far away from this life. From me, from all the violence and danger. Is that what you want? What I want is to keep you safe. Then, keep me here." I covered his hands with mine. "I'm safest with you. We both know that. Elena, I watched you tonight. I saw you kill 3 men without hesitation to protect your people. I saw you drop to your knees for a man who's your brother in all but blood." I held his tortured gaze. "I know exactly who you are, Dante Salvatore. And I'm still here. I'm still choosing you." The kiss was desperate, fierce, full of fear and relief and want. He backed me against his desk, his hands everywhere, and I clung to him just as desperately. We'd both come so close to losing each other tonight. The need to affirm we were alive, together, whole, was overwhelming. "I need you," Dante breathed against my lips. "Tell me you're mine. I'm yours," I whispered back. "Completely yours." His hands were already working at my clothes when reality crashed back in. Someone cleared their throat from the doorway. We broke apart to find Dr. Russo, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Luca is asking for both of you." We rushed back to the medical room to find Luca awake, weak but alert. His eyes found us both, and a ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Did I get him?" Luca asked. "You got him," Dante confirmed, his hand gripping his friend's shoulder. "You got all of them. The Marchettis are scattered. Dominic is dead." "Good." Luca's gaze shifted to me. "You saved my life. You saved his." I nodded toward Dante. "We're even. No, we're family now." Luca squeezed Dante's hand weakly. "Anyone who saves both of us, that's family." The simple declaration moved me more than any formal acceptance could have. In this world, family wasn't just blood. It was loyalty, sacrifice, trust. Dante pulled me close against his side as we stood watching Luca drift back to sleep. "He's right, you know. You're family now, part of this world. There's no walking away from that." "I know. And you're okay with that?" I thought about everything I'd seen in the past few days. The violence, yes, but also the loyalty. The danger, but also the protection. The darkness in Dante, but also the light. "I'm okay with it," I said. "As long as you are." His arm tightened around me. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. But even as he said it, I saw something flicker in his eyes, worry or maybe fear. Because in his world, caring about someone made them a target. And I'd just become the biggest target of all. The next 2 days passed in strange suspension. Luca recovered rapidly, his room becoming a constant flow of visitors, men paying respect to the boss's right hand who'd taken a bullet for him. The Marchetti organization had fractured without Dominic's leadership. Their remaining captains either killed in the warehouse firefight or scattered to the winds. Dante's power had been reaffirmed in blood. I should have felt safe. The immediate threat was gone. I could theoretically return to my life, finish medical school, go back to my apartment, pretend none of this ever happened. But I'd crossed a line. Every time Dante looked at me with heat in his eyes. Every moment I spent treating his wounded men and learning their names, their stories. Every night I fell asleep in his arms, feeling safer than I had anywhere else in my life. I'd chosen this world, chosen him. But had he really chosen me? I found him in his study on the 3rd evening, surrounded by papers and maps of the city, planning the restructuring of territories now that the Marchettis were gone. He looked up when I entered, and the transformation in his expression from cold calculation to warmth made my heart skip. "You should be resting," he said, even as he pushed back from the desk to pull me into his lap. "So should you." I traced the tired lines around his eyes. "You've barely slept since the warehouse. Too much to do." The Marchetti collapse created a power vacuum. "Other families are already circling." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "But that's not your concern. Everything about you is my concern now." His arms tightened around me. "Elena, we need to talk." The serious tone made my stomach drop. "That's never good. The danger's past. The Marchettis are finished. You could leave now. Go back to your life." He tilted my face up to meet his eyes. "I could arrange protection, make sure you're safe to finish your degree, start your residency. Are you sending me away?" "I'm giving you a choice. A real one, not one forced by immediate danger." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "Because once you commit to this life, to me, there's no going back. You'd be known as mine. A target, a weakness. Every rival would see you as leverage against me. I'm already a target. You said so yourself. That was different. That was survival. This is choosing to stay in danger permanently." He searched my face. "I can't promise you a normal life, Elena. I can't promise safety or peace or anything most people take for granted. All I can promise is that I'll protect you with everything I have. And if I want more than protection? What do you want?" The question hung between us. What did I want? A week ago, I would have said to finish medical school, start my residency, maybe eventually have a practice. Simple, clean, legal. Now? "I want you," I said simply. "Not the boss, not the protector. You. The man who holds me at night like he's afraid I'll disappear. Who shows mercy when he could show strength. Who loves his men like brothers and carries the weight of their lives on his shoulders." Dante's expression shifted, vulnerability bleeding through his usual control. "You see too much. Or maybe you hide too little from me." I cupped his face. "I know what I'm choosing, Dante. I'm choosing the danger along with you, the violence along with the loyalty, the darkness along with the light. I'm choosing all of it, because I'm choosing you. I don't deserve you. That's not for you to decide." I kissed him softly. "So stop trying to send me away, for my own good, and accept that I'm staying." His answer was to kiss me deeply, thoroughly, until we were both breathless. When he finally pulled back, his eyes held wonder and heat in equal measure. "Then stay," he said. "Be mine, in every way that matters." The promise in those words sent heat flooding through me. "Dante, not like this." He set me gently on my feet and stood, not in my office where anyone could interrupt. Not when I'm covered in blood and stress. He took my hand. "Come with me." He led me through the mansion to his private wing, past the master bedroom to a door I'd never seen open. Inside was an apartment within an apartment, sitting room, bathroom, and beyond that, a bedroom that was all masculine elegance and understated wealth. "This was going to be for a wife," Dante said quietly. "Back when I thought I might have something resembling a normal marriage, before I accepted what I really am." He turned to me. "But if you'll have it, have me. It's yours. You're yours. No obligations, no contracts. Just stay." I looked around the beautiful space, then back at the man offering me a life I'd never imagined wanting. "On one condition." His eyebrows rose. "You're negotiating with me?" "I'm establishing boundaries." I stepped closer. "I stay, but I finish medical school. And once I'm a doctor, I work here, treating your men, or at a clinic, whatever makes sense. But I don't become just an accessory to your life." Something like pride flickered in his eyes. "You want your own purpose. I need my own purpose. I can be yours and still be myself. Deal." He pulled me close, though I reserve the right to be insanely overprotective about your safety. I'd expect nothing less. His kiss this time was different, less desperate, more deliberate, a claiming yes, but also a cherishing. He backed me toward the bed with reverent care, his hands learning the shape of me with aching tenderness. When we finally came together, it was explosive and gentle, fierce, and tender, everything I'd never known I needed. He whispered my name like a prayer, and I held him like he was the only solid thing in a spinning world. Afterwards, wrapped in expensive sheets with Dante's arms around me, I felt something click into place. This was my choice, my life now, And despite everything, the danger, the violence, the impossibility of it all, I'd never felt more certain of anything. "What are you thinking?" Dante asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. "That I saved your life in a restaurant corridor, and somehow you saved mine right back. How do you figure? You made me brave. Made me realize I was settling for safe instead of fighting for real." I propped myself up to look at him. "My whole life I've played by the rules, done what was expected, and I was miserable without even realizing it. And now I'm terrified and exhilarated and more alive than I've ever been." I kissed him softly. "So thank you. For kidnapping you. For keeping me." His laugh was real, unguarded, beautiful. He rolled us so I was pinned beneath him, his eyes holding mine with an intensity that stole my breath. "I'm going to keep you forever," he promised. "Marry you, if you'll have me. Build a life with you. Give you everything I can." That sounds like a proposal. That sounds like a warning. But he was smiling. "Because I don't do anything halfway, Elena. If you're mine completely. Can you handle that?" I pulled him down for another kiss, putting everything I felt into it. The fear, the desire, the absolute certainty that this was where I belonged. "Try me," I whispered against his lips. And he did. 3 weeks later, I thought we'd found our rhythm. I'd officially moved into the estate, my few belongings from my old apartment absorbed into Dante's world with surprising ease. I attended classes remotely when possible, studied in the library, treated minor injuries among the men. Dr. Russo had taken me under his wing, teaching me the unique challenges of treating patients who couldn't risk hospital records. It felt almost normal, until it didn't. I was in the garden, reviewing notes for an upcoming exam, when Luca appeared with 4 guards. His face was grim, and fear shot through me. "Is Dante okay?" I asked immediately. "He's fine, but we need to move you. Now." "What? Why?" "Someone leaked your location to the Genovese family. They're planning a hit not on the boss, on you, to draw him out." Luca was already hustling me toward the house. "We're taking you to a safe house until we eliminate the threat." Everything happened fast. I was bundled into an SUV with a full security detail, driven through the city to a nondescript building that looked abandoned but was clearly a Salvatore stronghold. The apartment inside was sparse but secure reinforced walls, no windows, supplies to last for days. "Dante's on his way," Luca assured me. "But he wanted you secured first." "This is because of me," I said. "They're targeting you through me. They're targeting us because they see an opportunity. That's on them, not you." His scarred face was fierce with loyalty. "Your family. We protect family." He left me with 2 guards outside the door and instructions not to leave under any circumstances. I paced the small apartment, my medical textbooks forgotten, wondering how my life had become a series of safe houses and security details. My phone buzzed. "Dante, are you okay?" His voice was tight with tension. "I'm fine. Scared, but fine." "Where are you?" "Dealing with the Genovese problem." "Elena, I need you to listen carefully. Whatever happens, you stay put. Don't try to come after me, don't argue with the guards. Promise me." "Dante, what are you planning?" "What I have to." There was steel in his voice. "They came after you. That can't stand. Don't do anything stupid. Stupid would be letting them think you're fair game." His voice softened. "I love you, Elena. Whatever happens, remember that." The call ended before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone with ice in my veins. Whatever happens. That sounded too much like goodbye. An hour passed. 2. I tried to study, tried to eat the food my guards brought, tried to stay calm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When the explosion rattled the building, I knew I was right. "What was that?" I demanded, yanking open the door. My guards had weapons drawn, phones to their ears, confusion on their faces. "Unknown. Possible car bomb. 3 blocks away. A distraction. It had to be. We need to leave. Now. Miss Vitali, our orders, are about to get us all killed." That explosion was to draw Dante's men away from me, which means the lights cut out. In the darkness, I heard movement. Too much movement. My guards cursed in Italian, and then I heard the wet sound of flesh being struck, bodies hitting the floor. I ran. Through the dark apartment, hands outstretched, feeling for the back door I'd seen earlier. Behind me, footsteps, shouts, the unmistakable sound of a gun being fired. I burst through the back exit into an alley, my heart pounding. A car screeched to a halt at the alley's mouth. Wrong car, wrong men. I bolted the other direction, but hands caught me, dragging me backward. I fought, using everything I'd learned from self-defense classes, but there were too many of them. A cloth pressed over my face, chemical sweet, and the world went fuzzy. My last thought before darkness took me was of Dante, and the fear I'd never see him again. I woke to the smell of cigarettes and mold. My head pounded, mouth dry, hands zip-tied behind my back. I was in what looked like an abandoned warehouse, seemed to be a theme in the Mafia world, bound to a chair in the center of a large empty space. She's awake. The voice belonged to a man I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, expensive suit, cold eyes. He approached with the casual confidence of someone used to having power. "Miss Vitale, sorry for the rough treatment, but you're proving quite difficult to acquire." He smiled, and it was reptilian. "I'm Anthony Genovese. Where are my guards?" "Dead, I'm afraid. Occupational hazard." He circled me slowly. "Now, you're probably wondering why you're here instead of already dead." The thought crossed my mind. "You're bait, obviously, for Salvatore. He'll come for you, we'll kill him, and this city's power structure realigns. Simple plan." He paused. "But I'm a curious man. I want to understand what makes you special. What convinced Dante Salvatore, who's never kept a woman for more than a night, to risk everything for you? Maybe he has good taste." That earned me a backhand across the face. Pain exploded through my jaw, and I tasted blood. "Let me be clear," Genovese said, his voice still pleasant despite the violence. "I'm going to hurt you. A lot. And I'm going to make sure Salvatore knows about every second of it. Because that man needs to understand he's not untouchable. That the things he loves can be taken from him." He picked up a knife from a nearby table, testing the edge. "Where should we start?" Before he could move closer, the warehouse's main door exploded inward. Dante. He entered like a force of nature, gun in hand, death in his eyes. Behind him, I counted at least 15 men, Luca in front. Other captains I recognized from the estate. But it was Dante who commanded the space, who made every Genovese soldier raise their weapons in fear. "Let her go," Dante said, his voice carrying across the warehouse. "Now." "Or what?" Genovese grabbed my hair, yanking my head back and pressing the knife to my throat. "You'll kill me? I'm a dead man either way. At least I'll take something from you first." "You don't want to do that," Dante said. And there was something absolutely terrifying in his calm tone. "Because if you hurt her, I won't just kill you. I'll destroy everything you've ever touched. Your businesses, your men, your family. I'll salt the earth where your empire stood. Empty threats. Are you sure?" Dante took a step forward, and Genovese's men raised their guns. "I've already hit 4 of your locations tonight. Your brother is in a hospital under my guard. Your daughter's college dorm is surrounded by my men. And your wife." He smiled, and it was terrifying. "She's safe. For now. Because unlike you, I don't hurt innocent people." I saw the calculation in Genovese's eyes. The realization that Dante wasn't bluffing. The knife pressed harder against my throat, breaking skin. "But Elena isn't innocent," Genovese said. "She chose this life. Chose you. She is innocent of your sins." Dante's gun never wavered. "And if you kill her, I become the monster you think I am. Is that really what you want to face?" "I think gunshot," Genovese jerked, the knife clattering from his hand as he stumbled backward. The bullet had come from Luca, precise and lethal. Before the other Genovese soldiers could react, Dante's men were firing, the warehouse erupting into chaos. Dante was at my side in seconds, cutting my bonds, his hands frantically checking me over. "Are you hurt?" "Did he?" "I'm okay," I managed, though my voice shook. "The cut's superficial." He pulled me against him with such force I couldn't breathe, his heart racing against mine. Around us, the sounds of fighting faded as Dante's men secured the warehouse. But all I could focus on was the tremor in his hands, the way he held me like I might disappear. "I thought I'd lost you," he said against my hair. "When they took you, I thought, I'm here. I'm alive. You got to me. Barely." He pulled back, his hands framing my face. "This was too close, Elena. Too fucking close. But it's over now, right? Genovese is dead. His organization is broken. There will always be another threat, another rival, another reason to come after you." His eyes held anguish. "This is the cost of being with me. This is what I tried to warn you about. Dante, I need to know you can live with this, with constantly being a target, with safe houses and security details and moments like tonight. He swallowed hard. I need to know you won't wake up one day and regret choosing this life. I looked around the warehouse, at the bodies of men who'd died because of a power struggle I barely understood, at Dante's men, loyal to the point of death, at Luca, who'd killed to save me without hesitation. This was the reality of my choice. I'm terrified, I admitted. Tonight scared me more than anything in my life. But Dante? I took his face in my hands. I'm not going anywhere. Because yes, there will be more threats, more danger, but there will also be more moments in your arms, more mornings waking up to you, more late nights in your study while you work and I study, more of this life we're building together. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. I kissed him softly. So stop trying to push me away and accept that I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me. His answering smile was brilliant, real, unguarded. Forever? Forever. He kissed me then, deep and claiming and full of promise. Around us, his men discreetly turned away, giving us our moment. When we finally pulled apart, Dante kept me tucked against his side as Luca approached with a report on casualties and cleanup. The business of his world continued around us, but for the first time, I felt like I was truly part of it. Not an outsider, not a victim, but an equal partner in this dangerous life we'd chosen. Let's go home, Dante said quietly. Home, the Salvatore estate, our rooms, our life. Yes, that sounded perfect. 3 months later, I stood in front of the mirror in what had once been Dante's mother's suite, but was now undeniably mine. The white dress was simple, elegant, nothing like the elaborate gowns I'd imagined if I'd ever thought about a wedding at all. This was intimate, small, just Dante's closest men and Maria as witnesses, because this wasn't a normal wedding. This was a declaration, a claiming, a formal recognition of what we'd both known for months. We belonged to each other. You look beautiful, Maria said, adjusting my hair one last time, like an angel who wandered into the devil's house and decided to stay. That's disturbingly accurate, she laughed, her weathered face crinkling with joy. He's a good man beneath all the armor, Miss Elena. You've reminded him of that, given him something to protect beyond power and territory. He's given me something too. I met her eyes in the mirror. Purpose. Family. A reason to be brave. A knock at the door announced Luca. He'd recovered fully from his gunshot wound and insisted on escorting me. Ready? As I'll ever be. He offered his arm, his scarred face gentle. For what it's worth, you're the best thing that ever happened to the boss. He's different with you. More human. He was always human, Luca. He just hid it well. That's why you're perfect for him. You saw through his disguise. The ceremony was in Dante's study. Of all places, the room where he conducted business, passed judgment, ruled his empire. But tonight, it was transformed with flowers and candlelight into something softer, more intimate. And there was Dante, in a perfectly tailored black suit, his dark eyes fixed on me with such intensity it stole my breath. Dr. Russo stood beside him as best man, and I was struck by the rightness of it all. These people, this place, this dangerous, beautiful life, it was home. The ceremony was brief. No priest, we couldn't exactly have a traditional church wedding given Dante's life, but one of his old family friends officiated, speaking in Italian and English about loyalty, strength, and love forged in fire. When Dante slipped a ring onto my finger, a stunning diamond that probably cost more than my medical school tuition, his hands were steady, but his eyes held wonder. You're mine now, he whispered. Officially, legally, irrevocably mine. And you're mine, I whispered back. Don't forget that part. His smile was private, intimate, never. The kiss was chaste by our standards, considering the audience, but it held promise for later. His men cheered, and Maria cried, and I felt something settle in my chest. This was real. This was permanent. Afterwards, there was food and wine and toasts that ranged from heartfelt to raunchy. Luca gave a speech about how I'd saved both his and Dante's lives, making me family twice over. Dr. Russo welcomed me as a colleague, mentioning that he'd already submitted paperwork to have me officially join his practice once I graduated. Even hardened criminals got misty-eyed when talking about their boss finding love. As the evening wound down and guests departed, Dante and I found ourselves alone in our bedroom, the same room where I'd first kept vigil over his poisoned body, the same bed where we'd first admitted our feelings. Full circle. Mrs. Salvatore, Dante said, testing out my new name. How does it feel? Strange. Terrifying. Perfect. I moved into his arms. Ask me again in a year. In a year you'll be Dr. Salvatore. We'll have this conversation all over again. His hands worked at the buttons on my dress with practiced ease. But tonight, you're just mine. My wife. My partner. My salvation. That's a lot of pressure. You can handle it. The dress pooled at my feet. You've handled everything else I've thrown at you. Fair point. I helped him out of his jacket, his tie. Though I reserve the right to complain when you're being overprotective. Deal. And I reserve the right to ignore your complaints when your safety is at stake. We came together like we had countless times before, but this felt different. Weighted with promise. With permanence. With the knowledge that we'd chosen each other despite, or maybe because of, all the obstacles. When he finally made love to me, as his wife, it was tender and fierce, and absolutely right. Later, wrapped in each other in expensive sheets, Dante traced the fading scar on my throat from Genovese's knife. I still have nightmares about that night, he admitted quietly. About what could have happened if we'd been 5 minutes slower. But you weren't. You saved me. You saved me first. His lips brushed the scar. In that restaurant. And every day since. Then I guess we saved each other. Is that how you see it? I thought about the woman I'd been 3 months ago, cautious, controlled, playing by all the rules. And the woman I was now braver, wilder, living a life I'd never imagined possible. I see it as two broken people finding their missing pieces in each other. I said, you gave me courage. I gave you compassion. Together, we're better, he repeated. I like that. He pulled me closer. I love you, Elena Salvatore, more than I knew I could love anyone. I love you too, all of you. The boss and the man, the darkness and the light. We fell asleep like that, tangled together, safe in our fortress of power and protection. Outside, Dante's men kept watch. In the city beyond, our names carried weight and fear and respect. But here, in our private sanctuary, we were just Dante and Elena, husband and wife. Two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and chosen to build something beautiful from the danger. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from my study group asking if I'd be at tomorrow's review session. I smiled at the mundane normalcy of it. Tomorrow I'd go back to being a medical student, working toward my degree. The day after, I'd treat injuries in our makeshift clinic. Next week, Dante had a meeting with a rival family that might turn violent. This was my life now. Medical textbooks and mob meetings, surgery practice and security details. Love forged in danger and sustained by absolute trust. What are you smiling about? Dante murmured sleepily. Just thinking about how I saved a Mafia boss's life in a restaurant corridor, and ended up finding mine in the process. His arm tightened around me. Best decision I ever made. Collapsing in front of you. It wasn't a decision. It was poisoning. Semantics. I laughed, burrowing deeper into his warmth. Outside, dawn was beginning to paint the sky. A new day. A new chapter. And I was ready for whatever came next. Because I'd learned the truth. Love isn't found in safety and comfort. Sometimes it's found in danger and chaos. When someone looks at you across the wreckage of everything you thought you knew and says, stay. And you realize you've already been home all along.